I recently read an article somewhere, and I can't quite remember where, but it stated that the least played class in Baldur's Gate 3 was the Cleric, which, you know, I understand if you've never played the game before. I mean, who wants to play the support healer class? Everyone wants to play the warrior or the badass sorcerer or sneaky stealthy rogue. However, after finishing my first Baldur's Gate 3 campaign with Shadowheart in my party, I can comfortably say that the Cleric is by far one of the strongest classes in the game, and you should totally do a run as a Cleric. Now, I'm pretty confident in this statement. So confident, I decided that I would do a whole campaign of Baldur's Gate 3 with a whole party of Clerics.
There now, we're all friends again.
I'm going to go through the whole campaign in 3 parts with you to prove just how strong the Clerics can be. I'll be rushing to Withers to respec every character I take into my team. I'll also be respecing each into a different subclass of Cleric so that we have a good spread and a bit of a variety. And I'll go through each level with you and show you how I'm leveling up each character. Now, let's get this started by introducing my Cleric, Tyr. So Tyr is a Mephistopheles tiefling who is a lover of nature and peace. So obviously he's going to be a nature domain Cleric. This gives him the domain spell Speak with Animals and Animal Friendship. Now, since this is going to be my second run, I was curious and I decided to give Tyr the backstory of the Dark Urge. I don't know anything about Dark Urge, so this could be quite interesting for Tyr. Surely I won't regret that later on. For cantrips, he gets Mage Hand from being a Mephistopheles Tiefling, Guidance, Resistance, Sacred Flame, and I chose Shillag. We're going to settle on Shillag. For his starting spells, he's going to be starting with Guiding Bolt, Shield of Faith, Healing Word, and Sanctuary. His stats I'm going to leave as classic default Cleric stat, which is Strength 11, Dexterity 14, Constitution 13, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 17, and Charisma 12. And so, let's start our adventure. So as I said before, we're going to rush through this opening sequence and get to Withers as quickly as we can. So the first thing we did was saved us, because you never know, might come in handy later on down the track. We teamed up with Lae'zel, and obviously we had to save Shadowheart, because, you know, she's the OG Cleric. We tried to steal the sword from the Demon King, but we ultimately failed, so just decided to just abandon ship. After crashing, we woke up and teamed up with Shadowheart.
Can't think of better company.
Or the Intellect of Ours. And after this, we reached level 2. So Tyr gained Cure Wounds, and I switched Sanctuary for Bane because I really didn't think Sanctuary was going to be worth using. Shadowheart, I kept her with the default skills and of Inflict Wound, Guiding Bolt, Healing Word, Cure Wounds, and Shield of Faith. Next up, we collected Asterion and then Gale, and then we went to Withers' Tomb. But we did have to fight our way through the guys inside and fight the skeletons inside before we could actually get to Withers. Once we gained Withers, I basically started changing everyone straight away. Asterion, I made him a Tempest Domain Cleric, which gives him Thunder Wave and Fog. For cantrips, he had Resistance, Blade Ward, and Sacred Flame. And after he leveled up, I gave him the standard spells of Guiding Bolt, Shield Faith, Inflicting Wounds, Healing Word, and Cure Wounds. For Gale, I turned him into a Light Domain. He had the cantrips, Resistance, Thermatuology. Anyway, Sacred Flame. Being the Light Domain Cleric, he got Burning Hands, Fairy Fire. And for his starting spells, Guiding Bolt, Shield of Faith, Protection from Good and Evil, Healing Word, and Bless. So now we had our full party of Clerics, and we were ready to go and face the world properly. So the next thing we did was rescued Lae'zel from the cage, although I don't think I was planning on using her anyway, but you know, you never know. And then it was time for our first test with a full team of Clerics, defending the Grove from the Goblins. So basically I knew this fight was coming up, so I used Shield of Faith on the whole party before entering, and then I moved everyone up to the cliff to start off the cutscene.
Open the bloody gate!
Straight away after the cutscene, we had 2 goblins pretty much spawned up on the cliff with us. First up off the rack was Gale, who used Radiance of Dawn, which I didn't realize was a spell that he had in his kit, and it absolutely just wiped the floor with those 2 goblins that spawned on the rocks. So from that point, Guiding Bolt pretty much carried everyone through the fight, and we managed to get through them pretty easily. After entering the Grove, we prevented Zevlov and Aradin from fighting each other.
Forgive me, brother. I forgot myself.
We agreed to helping the Tieflings out with the Druids.
We owe you a great debt. If we're forced to leave now, more of my people will die.
We reached level 3 in the Grove, in which I ensured everyone had Spiritual Weapon, which is one of the strongest spells that the Clerics can have. We recruited Will, and I decided that I would have Will over Astarion, since in my own personal run, I had already finished the quest line for Astarion and I hadn't gone through Will, so we're going to go with Will.
Oh, darling, I'm hurt. I thought we had something special.
I reclassed Will to a Tempest Cleric and it used the exact same specs as I gave Astarion. Next thing, we rescue the Tiefling child from Arabella from Korga.
Out, thief. My grace has its limits.
Then we agreed to help the Tieflings leave.
You will do more than speak.
Poisoned by Nettie, got cured by Nettie.
Gods above. It's a risk, but maybe you deserve a chance.
And then we agreed to go and save Halsin. Spoke to Zevlor again and agreed to also kill all the goblins. Then we wandered up this hill and helped Aphira finish her song, which the voice in my head wasn't too pleased about. Next, we did a little bit more exploring and we found this kid who was being taken by the harpies, so we decided to help. But this was our first fight with spiritual weapons, so they came in quite handy against these. However, where I really saw some great stuff was when one of the harpies attacked Will. He had a reaction where he could use Wrath of Storm Lightning. It also allowed him to use his Channel Divinity reaction, Destructive Wrath, which obliterated one of the harpies. Apart from Will's reaction, Spiritual Weapons and Guarding Bolt continued to carry our fight, and Will's Shadow also doing some great damage to the harpies, but basically, you know, got through this fight pretty easily. After we helped the kid, we decided to leave the grove with the intention to recruit Karlach. Since I also hadn't gone through Karlach's story, I decided that I was going to take her into my party as well. Raphael presented himself to us, in which we told him to politely stick it.
Hope. Such a tease.
We also fought the owlbear, which our spiritual weapons, and this flaming ball, which was summoned by Gale as being part of the light cleric, which pretty much, you know, did most of the damage to it. Anyway, after fighting the owlbear, we continued to recruit Karlach and prevented Will and her from killing each other, which, you know, not going to have great outcome for Will.
Listen to sense now. Don't want this to end badly for either of us.
Decided to replace Shadowheart with Karlach.
Fine. I'll be here whenever you rediscover your taste in company.
And then turned Karlach into a war domain cleric. Because, you know, that's just how Karlach be. Now, instead of the standard stats though with Karlach, because she was going to be a little bit more of the offensive type, I decided I'd give her 2 points in strength instead of dexterity. After that, we long rested and was quite surprised to have Alfira wanting to join our crew.
It's Alfira from the Grove.
And I thought this was quite cool because I hadn't realized that Alfira was a playable character, and I thought, oh, well, I might actually add it to my party, or I might even try and romance her, who knows. And then this happened.
You open your eyes with a lurch, and you are not in your bed. You stand above a body which is in a state of gore nearly beyond recognition. The body of that brave girl who earnestly swore to devote her life to your cause. Her blood covers you, and its warmth feels like the embrace of an old friend.
So everyone was absolutely convinced that Tyr did it.
I'm going to say something I'm confident we're all thinking. Was this your doing?
In which he admitted that he did it to everyone, which everyone was quite happy to blame the tadpoles about, so win-win.
And hope this affliction spreads no further. I'm keeping my eye on you.
Anyway, before we long rested, Karlach had asked us to help kill the worshippers of Tyr who were chasing her, so we decided to fight and pretty much kill them all. Although their leader did one-shot both Tyr and Gale. So I was a little bit concerned, but this is where Healing Word is super handy. The fact that it's a bonus action means that you can easily just revive someone at quite a long distance and pick them up off the ground and continue to have an action yourself. So we made short work of them using, as you would have guessed, Spirit Weapons and Guarding Bolt. That night the party was greeted by Missoura, who was, you know, there for Will. And since Will hadn't killed Karlach, well, you know what happens. Will gets turned into a devil. And strangely, later that night, Tyr was greeted by a strange little fellow, Belaratus Fell.
Lord, jubilant day! I have found your vile self at last!
And he gives some kind of explanation to Tyr's behavior and what's going on in his mind, but doesn't really explain everything, even though I tried. But he does give Tyr a cool invisibility cloak as a bit of a reward for killing Alfira, I guess?
Your dreadful inheritance.
So next we attempted to help the Zhentarim men trapped by the gnolls, but during the interaction with the gnolls, Karlach convinces the gnolls not to attack us.
Power courses through you. Authority.
However, the gnolls continue to attack the men in the cave. So, you know, being the good Samaritan clerics that we are, we decided we're going to go help the clerics. So we attacked the gnolls again. However, the men are not convinced that we're there to help them as well, so we end up having to kill them. So we decided to take the Iron Flask. We then kill the gnolls and the hyenas on the path towards the Burning Tavern, and then help Chancellor Floric and Baron escape the Burning Tavern, in which we reach level 4. This was going to be our first feat, and for Tyr, Gale, and Will, I gave them all ability improvements, increasing their wisdom by 2 points to 19. However, I increased Karlach's strength to 17 instead. So next we decided to investigate the Zentarium hideout. Don't know how I know it's there. So we get in without being blown up, which was great. However, we end up getting blown up because we opened the package and basically they want us dead. This was actually the first time I had to reload this game because I did not expect them to actually just, you know, straight up want to just blow everything up like that. So after obliterating our party and I had to reload, I decided to get the preemptive strike, have everyone up on the ledge, and basically do the same thing to them. Unfortunately, this means that we weren't going to be able to get any of the loot that they had. So next, it was time to go and confront the goblins. In the destroyed town, I managed to convince the goblins to let us through. And then I proceeded to get sidetracked in an area that I actually hadn't discovered before. I found these men who were confronting Auntie Ethel, but during the interaction I found something was not quite up, so I decided not to help her.
Auntie Ethel's face creases with false concern. You realize she's lying about seeing this girl, Mayrina.
The men decided to run off without wanting my help, in which I decided I will follow them because, you know, we're good Samaritan clerics, and then found that they were dead. After speaking to one of their dead bodies, I found that the sheep were a little bit suspicious.
Wasn't a sheep.
Using Tyr's talking to animals, we decided to talk to the sheep, but something still was quite suspicious. So we decided to straight up attack the sheep, which, you know, turns out they're actually just disguised bloodcaps. Because we had the upper hand, we knew what was going on. We quickly dealt with them and continued on to the tea house. In the tea house, we confronted Auntie Ethel, who had the sister there, and something wasn't quite right.
Grant me patience. Eat up, Mayrina. I won't say it again.
We didn't take her warning, and I was feeling pretty confident, so we decided to fight her. Turns out, obviously, she was a hag. I was pretty confident about the fight until she turned invisible, but luckily Tyr had this nature domain spell, Spike Growth, which I was able to cast on the battlefield, which revealed her location to us, which was quite useful. We then completely surrounded her with spiritual weapons and went to town on her, causing her to run away. So since we managed to scare her off quite easily, we thought, you know, we're just going to charge in straight after her. After we quickly fought and dispatched her followers, we managed to get past all the traps without getting blown up too much. At the bottom of the cave, I could see that the sister was still in the cage. However, I kind of knew if I tried to talk to her, this is going to start the boss fight. So I just thought, you know, I'm going to explore a little bit more just in case. I managed to do a lot of looting in the back room, get a few potions, get everything ready. We also found our way out in which we were able to long rest before going back in, so cheesed it a little bit. Once we came back in, we were ready to fight Auntie Ethel.
You want the girl so bad. Fine.
Auntie Ethel set the cage on fire, in which we used an ice arrow to put it out so we could fight Auntie Ethel without having to worry about the sister. During the fight, Auntie Ethel multiplies herself with different illusions, so you have to try and work out which one's what, which the spirit weapons are very useful for. And then we continue to use Guiding Bolt to do a lot of work taking her out. She tried the invisibility trick again on us, but Tyr's spell, Spike Growth, made quick work of that. After defeating the hag, we decided to go back to town. And then I found another area that I hadn't discovered yet, the well. After going down the well, we quickly went through, managed to kill all the spiders pretty easily, and then leave quite quickly. After we left the well, we confronted the goblins who were torturing the gnome on the windmill and decided to just straight up attack them.
Whoa, quick, get him!
Now, I was a little bit concerned with this fight because there was quite a few goblins there. However, Gale pretty much walked in, used Radiance of Dawn in his first move and caused them all to surrender by wiping out 3 of them.
Stop! I give up! For mercy, please!
It was on to the goblin camp. To my surprise, the goblins pretty much just let us walk straight to the door without any issues. So once we got into the camp, I was feeling pretty confident. We were quite strong. We've fought many things without much difficulty. So, you know, I thought I'd just pick a fight with a goblin. This fight took a little bit of time, but basically being able to summon spirit weapons and doubling our numbers along with the flaming ball, we were able to take out the goblins. So Guiding Bolt obviously being the next used spell, which did quite a lot of work for us, as well as Will's spell Shatter, which actually was quite helpful at taking out quite a few goblins who were standing quite close to each other. So after making quick work of all the goblins, it was next to go inside and continue to decimate them all. The next thing we had to do was fight the goblin priest, and we decided to just flat out attack them again. This one was a little bit more difficult because they pulled the statue down on us, but with these spirit weapons and Guiding Bolt, we made quick work of them yet again. Next we rescued Harslan. We walked out of the dens and decided to fight these goblins who were standing outside, which caused Mithara to come and fight us as well, which we made quick work of. After we killed her, we reached level 5, which allowed us to unlock Spirit Guardians. And this is pretty much when things get pretty freaking cool for the clerics. I was feeling extremely confident at this point, so we basically walked into Duergar's cave and started the fight. I made sure each character used Spirit Guardians and spiritual weapons to really bolster our numbers. Spirit Guardians is just so strong. Anyone who came close to our party just got dominated by it. Jorragson tried to come in, but he just got absolutely obliterated. And then we just tidied up and cleaned everyone else up with Guiding Bolts. After we killed Jorragson, we did a whole bunch of looting, tidied up any goblins that we might have left behind, and then went back to the grove to celebrate.
Everyone seems to be in high.
So while we're back in the grove, I decided I'd buy everyone different dyes to, you know, stylize the characters up a bit, and ended up turning my entire party into the Power Rangers. And while we're here, I also heard from a friend that I should try and let Volo help remove the parasite from my eye. He didn't tell me what the outcome was, so I thought I'd give it a try.
He produces an ice pick,
in which Volo knocks Tyr's eye out.
Eye plops down into the mud.
However, he was nice enough to replace it with another cooler eye, which lets me see invisible people, so I guess it's a good trade. So it was now time to proceed through the Goblin camp and into the Underdark. So we quickly fought and killed the ogre who was guarding the entrance to the Underdark. We completed the puzzle and continued down. While we were in the Sulina outpost, we did a long rest, and I found that the owlbear cub had come back and become a permanent resident of our campsite, and that the cub and Scratch were getting along. Very good friends. After looting the outpost, we climbed through the window, ran into the statue garden to fight the Spectator. This was actually a challenging fight, especially with the drow helpers. The Spectator took Karlach out pretty quickly straight off the bat, and put a lot of pressure on our health, but luckily mass healing was able to help us stay alive. Radiance of Dawn helped deal some good damage and take out one of the drows quite easily. Completely messed up Will's shockwave, but we won't talk about that anymore. And then Spirit Guardians and spiritual weapons, as you would expect, did quite a lot of work. Spirit Guardians is great because you can basically just like move towards the enemy. You don't even need to do an action in your turn. You can basically do damage to 2 different enemies in 2 different locations with Spirit Guardians as you just walk around the map. So pretty much at this point in the battle, I had 3 spirit weapons surrounding the Spectator, each doing a good chunk of damage to the Spectator's health. And this basically was what was able to help us win this fight quite easily. And then we just quickly wrapped up the remaining drow. As we continued on, Bullet almost discovered us. However, because the game went into automatic turn-based mode, we were able to sneak past it. It revealed itself down the bottom of the sledge, so we were able to sneak up onto it. And because we had the high ground and we attacked it and gave us a surprise attack on it, we were able to completely wipe the floor with it. It only had 1 round of attacks and it completely missed. So we were able to kill it without even taking any damage. So we continued on to loot and explore the Underdark. Then we came across the invisible Duergar, who was not invisible anymore because of Tyr's all-seeing eye. However, we decided not to attack them, and then we spoke to them. They didn't seem very happy with us being there, and so we retaliated with our weapons. So of course, Spirit Guardians was our opening spell, but Karlach couldn't get through this doorway because of Gale, so she did this badass move of jumping through the window. Everybody summoned spirit weapons, and along with Will's Shadow, were able to take a huge chunk out of the leader's health. We also summoned our first zombie to help with the fight. And just towards the end of the fight, the leader tried to turn invisible again, but we were able to use Spirit Guardians one more time to reveal his location and wipe him out. After we killed the Duergar, we continued to the Micronid's home and reported to the Sovereign that we killed the Duergar, which they wanted dead.
I name you Peace Bringer.
We also agreed that we'd kill the leader across the river. The Sovereign Glut wanted us to show us the bodies of the Duergar we killed, and after showing him, he asked us to help him overthrow the Sovereign. And we thought, nah, so we took out Glut. So before we crossed the lake, I wanted to explore some more of the Underdark. So we actually found another area of the map that I hadn't been before, and we started a fight with 2 Minotaurs. Now this was actually quite challenging, and I was a little bit concerned because both of the Minotaurs used their charge attack on us and did significant damage. Luckily we were able to kill one to get him out of the fight pretty early, but the second one took 2 of us out and had us pretty much on the ropes. We were able to kill him just before his next turn, which I reckon would have wiped us out. We continued to explore the Underdark and found the Hook Horrors and Fill Road of the Forgotten, which we took out pretty easily. So now it was finally time to cross the lake and save the gnomes. So when we got there, they believed us to meet members of the Absolute, but they continued to insult us, so I thought this would be a good time to pick a fight.
For brains.
Although this start had me a little bit concerned, as they managed to do some good damage to us straight off the bat. Plus, everyone in the whole area started making their way down to us, so I was a little bit worried. We managed to turn the fight around with Spirit Guardians and Spiritual Weapons and Mass Healing Word to keep everyone healed. After a little bit of a back and forth fight, we managed to kill them, and all the others that were making their way down to us just basically gave up, so I took that opportunity to take a long rest. So we ventured forth and spoke to Sergeant Thrym. My intention was to start a fight there and wipe them all out, but I ended up picking the wrong dialogue option and gave her back her boots, forcing Tyr to leg it around the barefoot because I had actually sold all the boots I had to the trader in the Micronid town. So at this point I thought it'd be best to try and help the gnomes by saving Nere and the gnome that was trapped inside. So we spoke to the gnomes who told us about their friend who had hit the explosives. We set out to find her friend and fought some slime monsters plus these random hellhounds and hellspawn. We quickly made our way to where their friend was hiding and convinced her not to blow us all up.
Shit. I can't do it.
We returned back to the cave-in with the explosives and blew it up. Nere came out and we confronted him with the intention to fight. However, I forgot to long rest and pretty much had no spell slots. Unfortunately, this fight was over before it started and we all died. So this was the second time that we unfortunately all died. After reloading, I ensured that we were all long rested before this fight. This was actually quite a challenging fight, even though we had long rested. Spirit Guardians helped just chunk the health of all the Duergar who were surrounding us initially. And the Spirit Weapons and Gale's Flaming Ball to help us balance the numbers, but things were looking rough for us at the end of the first round. All of us except Karlach had less than half health. Luckily, Mass Healing would help keep us in the fight for a little bit longer. We also are able to summon more zombies to help and even the odds. I used our minions to keep consistent damage on Nere, but by the end of the third round, things were looking rough again. Will was knocked down and Gal had been knocked into the lava, which made it impossible to save him. Eventually, I managed to get all their minions to gang up on Nere along with the Spirit Guardians to take out Nere, and I used all of our other minions to chase down the archers and take them all out. So after we'd won the fight, Gal had died in the lava, and there was no way I could get him out. And we had to revive him to prevent him going nuclear.
Station. That means I have prematurely perished.
I wasn't able to follow his secret revival methods, so I had to go to Withers to revive him, as I couldn't access Gal's body in the lava.
Oh, it's good to be alive.
We took Nere's head to the Micronids, who sang us a song in celebration. Then next we continued to the Grimforge. We made short work of the Methods, who appeared out of lava with Spirit Guardians and Gale's Radiance of Dawn, which, area of effect damage, just insane. After that, it was time to start making our first mithril item, which summoned the Grim. Now, since I'd done this before, the fight was actually quite easy. I knew exactly what to do and knew exactly what to expect. However, for some reason, after we beat the Grim, I wasn't able to make anything else out of mithril. That for some reason the game glitched and I wasn't able to continue the process. So unfortunately, after some time trying, I eventually gave up. And so we continued to wrap up a few loose ends around the area, and then we continued to Act 2. And that, everybody, wraps up Act 1. And now, to be honest, Act 1 has been pretty easy so far. Towards the end, there were some pretty difficult fights, and I've only had to reload twice. Compared to my first run when I first played Baldur's Gate, this is a significant difference. Honestly, haven't really been trying to avoid fights, and I've been doing everything. Now, there's two ways I could think about this. Because I've been attacking everything and I know what to expect, obviously it makes the game a little bit easier. I'm higher level because I've been attacking everything. So I think in the next act, just to add a little bit more challenge, we're going to up the difficulty to Tactician and see how that goes. Now, from what I know, Act 2 is harder than Act 1, so this could be a mistake overall, but I'm up for the challenge. So if you've been enjoying this so far, I would really appreciate it if you did hit the like button. I will be releasing Act 2 in the coming weeks, so look forward to that, and I will see you for the next video. Thank you very much.